Welcome to r/entitled people, where we share stories from your lives about people who think the rules don't apply to them and they should get what they want. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. And today we have two great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. I quit my job after my boss refused to let anyone celebrate my personal achievement and then proceeded to undermine my work. The second story. Guest refused to leave after checkout and ended up spending the night in jail. The first story is my quitting story from a few years ago. This happened a couple of years ago. I'm not going to name the company for fear of some level of professional retaliation, and the company is less than 1,500 employees, so it's not like a megacorp that anyone would be familiar with anyone. Also, if anyone from there ever was able to connect me with this account, I'd want to avoid the drama. I started with this company in mid-2015. At first, everything seemed fine. My boss and their boss were both accessible and supportive, and I even got some out-of-the-blue bonuses in the form of sports tickets a couple of times. All was going well until I finally graduated with my master's degree that I'd been working on during the weekends and evenings. I invited everyone on my boss's staff to come out with me for a couple of drinks to celebrate on a Friday after work at a local bar that I had been to for small team get-togethers a handful of times. I arrived at the bar after work and had a beer, then another, then a third. Nearly 2 hours after business had closed, not a single person showed up. It was super bizarre, but I figured, hey, SH happens. As I was cashing out, one of my coworkers walked in and told me she was the last one off campus. I told her I'd been there alone for a couple of hours. She had a drink while I sat and drank a glass of water, and she let it slip that my boss had subtly suggested to a couple of other people on the team that they not show up because he didn't want people celebrating a personal non-work-related achievement as an unofficial company event. I was furious. We talked for a while and then I left about 40 minutes later. The following several months, there was a dramatic change in behavior and attitude toward me by my boss, his boss, and most notably HR. Suddenly, my hours as a salary employee were being hawked. I got told I wasn't allowed to take long lunches, even if I showed up early or worked late. I was told that I had to work specific hours instead of flexing my hours around. The straw that finally broke the camel's back, though, was when my project came under fire. I'd been leading a project for about 4 months to optimize the use of our most expensive and highest volume raw material, which had then led to some changes of our production lines that required a bunch of facilities work to be done. I had weekly check-ins specifically about this project with my boss, who had never mentioned anything about being concerned about the results or progress up to this point. In fact, he was so impressed with the results he had given me MLB tickets a couple of months into the project. I had documented several instances of me asking him whether to involve one specific person in one of the areas, as they seemed concerned about not being included. We'll call this person HMT, but he kept brushing it off as a non-issue and told me to keep driving on without involving HMT. Now, I was quite bitter about only one person showing up to celebrate my graduation with me, and the person that did show up, she and I had built a bit of a rapport, or so I thought. I told her I was considering asking for a pay raise, and if it wasn't approved, looking for another job because of how much higher my earning potential was after my master's degree. I specifically said, I think this company needs me more than I need them at this point, because there are no shortages of open positions for someone with my skill set and bona fides. 2 days later, I'm called into HR. The HR person tells me that they're getting complaints from other employees about me discussing being unhappy with my pay, and specifically mentioned me saying, the company needs me more than I need them. I said, well, I'm the only person here that does my kind of work, and the project I've completed has saved the company 4 times my salary every year going forward. So yeah, I'd say that I'd be more than capable of getting paid more with that kind of job performance. And I wasn't happy with my pay, since I had produced a massive results and now had a master's degree. They said, yeah, that's the other thing. No one cares about your master's degree, and you're not getting a raise because of it, so stop talking about it. In that moment, I was shocked, but it was apparent they weren't concerned about keeping me as an employee. So I got a bit antagonistic. I pulled out the notebook I always carried with me to meetings, clicked my pen, and said in as calm of a voice as I could, is it your personal position or the position of the company that I not discuss my compensation with other employees? They responded, the company's. I said, can I have that in writing right now, please, so that I can reference it as part of the company's policies? They went bright red. As red as I've ever seen someone. They said, this meeting is over. I responded, so that's a no then? And they repeated, this meeting is done. I got back to my desk and immediately sent an email to the HR representative and their boss, referencing the meeting on the calendar and documenting what was discussed. along with the abrupt end to the meeting. I got no response. Several days later, I was working on my project and was approached by HMT, stands for Homophobic Mullet Technician, asking why I wasn't including them in my project. I said that I had asked my boss about it and was told he had other priorities and didn't need to be included. He proceeded to yell at me and I said, "Listen, you can be upset with me, but I have no power here. If you want to be included, you have to go through the person with authority who told me specifically not to include you, which is my boss." He proceeds to storm off, saying I don't need to take this SH from some F in front of a room full of people. I was blown away. I picked up my things and immediately went to the HR office and demanded a meeting with my boss, HMT's boss, and HR. The meeting happened within about 10 minutes. I told them what happened, and they said they would investigate. A week went by with no news, and my boss shows up to my desk and asks why I've been working my project for the last week. I told him I wasn't going to work in the vicinity of someone that had used a homophobic slur at me, and that the company was yet to take action. I then said, "So how's the investigation progressing?" He said he didn't know and would get back to me. Another full week went by before I was pulled into a meeting with HR, where they told me they had interviewed the other person, and that person denied saying that to me. I said, "It took you 2 weeks to have one conversation where the person denied saying what a room full of people heard them say clear as day? Have you talked to anyone who was in the room?" They said they decided not to do that and closed the investigation. I told them they needed to reopen it and talk to the people who were in the room. They begrudgingly agreed. I got up to leave and they said there was another matter to discuss. They proceeded to say that me not working on the project for 2 weeks was unacceptable, and that I would be on a performance improvement plan. Code for we're taking steps to cover our A for when we fire you. I said that this was clearly retaliation, and that it wasn't my fault they took 2 weeks to have a single 10-minute discussion, and that I was not comfortable returning to an environment where I had been harassed based on a protected class in our state, and forcing me to do so violated my rights as an employee. They were again livid. Another 2 full weeks went by, during which time I had several interviews for other positions, and my boss calls me into a meeting with himself and HR to say that he wasn't seeing improvement per the PIP. I said, well, it's going to be difficult to see improvement when I'm not working on the project, because the company has failed to take appropriate remediating action regarding my harassment complaint. He said that was a separate issue and I don't get to keep using it as an excuse. I asked whether HMT still present in the area where my project works needs to be done, and he said yes, of course, that I needed to include him in the project, and should have from the start. I pulled out my notebook and proceeded to cite at least a dozen different instances where we met, and I asked whether HMT should be included, and pointed out that he, my boss, always said not to include him. He was peeved and said, "People are awfully sick of you taking notes all the time in your little notebook, and then using those notes against us later." I was so shocked at the stupidity that I just laughed. He told me to sign my PIP update. I declined. He said he wasn't asking. I said that my signature is voluntary and I won't be signing that paper, and he ended the meeting. An hour later to the minute, I got a phone call from one of the places I'd interviewed offering me another job for 40% more money, more vacation, better incentives, and a relocation package to ensure my commute was 20 minutes or less. I immediately accepted. They sent the formal offer letter via email. I signed it and I sent it back home. I proceeded to write my resignation letter and print off 3 copies. One for me, one for HR, one for boss. In the letter, I gave a month's notice. Probably stupid, but I was younger and didn't know better. I walked into my boss's office, gave him the letter and said I was resigning, okay, XYZ date, because of a better offer and that I would not consider a counteroffer because of how poorly they handled the situation with HMT. I then said, to be completely clear, I actually like the work here as far as work goes. I only started looking because the company, UNHR specifically, retaliated against me after making a complaint that you're fully aware was legitimate. Tomorrow is Friday and I'll be taking it as vacation day. That weekend was incredible. I felt so free and alive. I didn't think about work a single time. On Monday morning, my alarm went off. I turned it off, rolled over, called the sick leave line, and went back to sleep until early noon. On Tuesday, I showed up to work an hour and a half later than I was supposed to and was called into HR for the final time. They said they were terminating me effective immediately. I asked whether they got my letter. They said no. I walked to their inbox, pulled it out and put it on their desk, and said, I dropped this in your inbox on Thursday. There's the date. Oh, and I noted that I did so in my trusty notebook here. So you can terminate me if you like, but you'll be paying me through the last date on that resignation letter, which is the 2nd of the month, and my benefits will continue through the entirety of that month. They were fuming. I gathered my things, left the site for the last time, and got 3 paychecks over the next 5 weeks while not working. And that's my favorite quitting story. And the last story is, Guess spent forever leaving the room after checkout. Now she's spending the night in jail. Guess had been staying with us for a while, paying cash daily, always paying late, but I only really work afternoons and don't ever hear about it. Came in this afternoon at 3 and see her name on the checkout list. She never paid for the room at all today. So I go over to her room and talk to her, and I tell her that if she can't pay for the room right away, she has to leave. She gives the usual sob story of her brother coming to pick her up from a city hours away, and she doesn't know why he isn't here yet. So I play nice. I tell her that if we're talking about a few minutes, we can wait. Otherwise, she needs to leave the room. I gave her a full half hour, because this was effectively the first warning. I go back, this is about 3:40 now, and knock. No answer. Knock again, no answer. Knock a third time, no answer. So I open the door and she's laying out on the bed totally asleep. She wakes up after I yell at her and goes back to her routine of I just need to call someone to get the money. I tell her flat out she needs to leave the room, right then. Are you mad at me or something? I'm not happy with you. I told you a long time ago now to leave and you aren't even trying to. But I have so much stuff. I brought a cart to help out, but you need to go now. I'm cutting out so much of the Winnie banner because it really is all that tedious. Can I? No, you need to leave. But I just need, ma'am, it's already 4 p.m. Haha, no way. Yes way. That's funny, and you look so good with your hair. I've been growing my hair out and it's starting to look good, but I wasn't going to take that bait. Ma'am, you need to leave, and if I have to tell you again, I'll be calling the police. They're going to arrest me? Probably not unless you have a warrant. Or you could be an adult and start moving your stuff. I pointedly avoided saying leave the room because of the promise. Well, okay, but first I need to take a shower. No, you're not. If you wanted a shower before you left, you should have done it at 10 a.m., not 4 p.m. I pull out my phone and start dialing the non-emergency number. She goes into the bathroom to pee and acts like I'm going to watch her. I left since the police were now on their way. Took about a half an hour for the cops to come in, and she tries to pretend she can't hear them. We can hear her talking clearly on the other side of the door. She tries to talk to them without unlocking it, and the cops get me to get the tool to open the security latch. One of these days, I'll make a tool that works better. She does ultimately open the door and talks to the officers. She doesn't see me at first, so she makes it sound like she didn't know it was so late, and she's just watching for more money. Then she sees me. Oh, he's right there. Cop doesn't care. I already told him that it was too late to pay. We just want her gone. After all, she just pulled the same stunt tomorrow. Guest nods and says that she'll pack her stuff, then closes the door on the cop and locks it again. Cop locks eyes with me. Yeah, I'm gonna take her in. I use the tool to get through the latch. It took an embarrassing number of tries, and the cop goes into the room and arrests her for trespassing. Oh boy, did this sweet old lady with the high voice and the childlike attitude change into the grouchiest ogre I've seen in years. Cops had her out of the room and started pulling all her stuff to go with her. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.